one of the things that I found that helps people to set and have a higher probability of achieving those goals is if their goals are in alignment with their values.
This is Growth in Dentistry, a dental intelligence podcast where we ask the question, what does growth in dentistry look like to you? I'm Katie Polson, a dental hygienist and your host. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Growth in Dentistry. This episode is being launched amidst the holiday season, so I hope you guys are all enjoying it or enduring it, whichever one is your preference. We'd ask that you, I would love if you joined our Facebook Dental Intelligence community, come join like-minded people and enjoy conversations about data and all other dentistry nerd things that we talk about there. And if you would be so kind, please rate and review this podcast. We read everyone. I'd like to introduce our special guest today is Jonathan Moffat. We're just super excited to be able to have him with us today. And I'm going to just tell you a little bit about him for those that may not know him. Jonathan Moffat started Aligned Advisors due to a very personal history with dentistry. From a young age, he saw his grandfather enjoy great business as a successful orthodontist and later lose virtually all his wealth due to poorly controlled advice and bad personal decisions. This experience sparked Jonathan's passion for helping dentists avoid the same pitfalls he saw his grandfather make. Jonathan's education spans both finance and business at institutions including University of California, Irvine, as well as an executive education at the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. In 2016, Jonathan was asked by a client to join him in building a multi-location dental group, and they grew that group from 1 to 8 locations in a short span of 3 years. This experience helps Jonathan to see firsthand the challenges and celebrations that many dentists experience as practice owners. And in 2017, Jonathan was invited to be faculty for Henry Schein's Dental Business Institute, where he had the opportunity to review hundreds of dental practices' business plans and act as a business advisor to the dentists in that program. He still serves as faculty to this day. And this year, Jonathan created the 10-part series called Stepping Away, where he gives dentists the step-by-step blueprint to step away from the chair and have more time and more freedom on their terms. So welcome.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks for having me.
So this episode, like I said, is launching over the holidays. It's actually going to be launching on December 31st. And there's a lot of people who either love New Year's resolutions or they hate them. They can be pretty polarizing topic. But at Dental Intel, we're really goal focused, and we like to talk about growth in terms of goals and how you can measure them. And with obviously, as I read there, I've advised many businesses on how to grow. And so I'd love to know what advice you can give on how you've helped people grow, setting goals. So what advice can you talk to people about starting the new year with setting attainable goals?
Yeah, I mean, look, one of the greatest things about Dental Intel is the fact that not only does it help you set goals, which is like so powerful, but it has that, which is we'll talk about here in a minute, is more importantly than setting is measuring the goals, like measuring your progress. New Year's, you mentioned New Year's resolutions. I was reading and kind of looking at some stuff in preparation for this podcast, and I saw a couple statistics, which again, aren't going to surprise any of us because we hear it every end of December, beginning of January, but it's like 25% of the people that set New Year's resolutions, 25% of those people after 2 weeks will be like, I'm out. I'm done with my resolution. I'm over it. Right.
Yeah. That sounds like me.
And then 80% in 6 weeks. So 6 weeks, 80% of the people are like, I'm done. Right. So that's kind of we don't have time to get into the why that is, but I find that to be really interesting. And for any of us who belong to a gym, we all know literally the worst time to be a gym member is like right after the first of the year. Right. So that's why you tell your friends like, all right, look, let's maybe do some cycling or do some stuff. And then we'll hit the gym in like 3 weeks when everyone's given up.
It's
right?
So true.
Yeah.
Yep. I know. I hate, you can't find parking. Your meal's taken. I know. I hate it.
All the classes are full. Yeah, totally. So as we were talking kind of in preparation for this podcast, we were saying, you're kind of asking me, how do we help clients achieve attainable goals? So I think set and achieve attainable goals. And as I've thought about that, Katie, since you and I talked, I thought, attainable goals, that's kind of it's an interesting like way to look at it, because I think attainable means it means something different to everybody. And I think that a lot of us have limiting beliefs around goals, around what we think we can accomplish and what we think we can achieve. And I think a lot of those limiting beliefs are based on our personal experiences. And certainly as a business owner, right? If any of you have sat down and tried to set goals with your staff, sometimes we get negative feedback from, I don't know, doc, I don't know that we can really hit that production number, or man, this seems like this is a lot, right? I know whenever we would sit down and make goals with our group that I was involved with, we would always try and involve the team, the staff, in making those goals. We wanted them to feel like that was a part of it. And sometimes we get feedback like, why are all these goals money focused and focus? And so I think what I found through, what we mainly do is help our clients set goals. We give them the blueprint for how to achieve those goals within the timeline they set. And one of the things that I found that helps people to set and have a higher probability of achieving those goals is if their goals are in alignment with their values. And that is so key. And a lot of times I think we just set goals based on, hey, I need to lose a little bit of weight, or, I want to grow my practice by, 10 or 15%. I think we go to these seminars, listen to podcasts, we hear numbers, and then we just kind of incorporate that. But if there's not a strong tie from that goal to your values, like why is that specific goal important to you? The likelihood and probability of you achieving that goal is not great. Not saying you can't achieve it, but it's a lot less than if you can tie that directly to a value. So I'll give you a quick example. We have a client whose father passed away at a very young age. His father was an attorney, very successful, was playing basketball one morning at the gym and literally just dropped dead of a heart attack right there. And my client will tell you to this day, the reason he has achieved so much success at a very young age is because he experienced his dad passing at a young age. And so there's a strong emotional and connection to that. And he's like, I value this whole idea of like work hard, save into a retirement plan, and then at 60 something retire. Like that didn't never resonate with him, because he's like, I watched my dad work hard, save money, and then pass away at a young age. Right. So it's really important to spend the time both on the personal side, but also on the business side. What's your vision? What's your mission statement? What are the values of your business and your practice? Take the time and really make that investment. Do it on your own, and then do it with your team. Make sure everyone's bought in and understands and is passionate about the same reasons why we show up and why we see patients and why we provide a certain level of care and why our goals are important to us. The goals aren't always about money, which I think a lot of times there's that connotation. It's easy to get tied to that. Like, well, we're just all about money. That's not the case. Like money's a part of it, but that's a metric to measure, one metric to measure the success, but that's not the only metric we can use to measure whether we're making progress or achieving our goals or not. So I would say, Katie, probably the most important thing that most people don't do is get that clarity around their values and then tie that to their goals. And then those values support their goals. And if you'll do that, you'll have a lot higher likelihood and probability of achieving those goals.
Yeah, I love the connection you made to value and goals, because just in my own personal journey of setting, because I'm a goal-oriented person. Ever since I was little, my dad would sit us down every quarter and we'd go over our small and long-term goals. I know that's
awesome.
I know. Well, I know. I wish I was I had every intention to do that with my own kids, but it never happens. But I remember doing that as a young kid, and a lot of the things that we would choose as things that were valuable to us, and so that's kind of instilled in me. But I understand that it's not something that we typically think of. Especially in business, I think a lot of a lot of people, or I see a lot of practices make the mistake of just kind of trying to keep up with the Joneses or keep up with whatever their friends are trying to do or trying to accomplish or trying not to get pushed out in certain areas. And maybe they don't value that, right? Maybe they just value having a single doctor practice, you know what I mean? And so I love that. I love that advice that you gave. So you're super passionate about helping doctors achieve success out of the chair, which I think a lot of doctors' ears will perk up when we talk about this, because many of them, regardless of whether they're at the end of their career or just at the start, maybe they're interested in it. So how do you do that? And what advice can you do to help them achieve that? Besides the fact that you have a great step-by-step blueprint on how to do it, but give us some insight on that.
Yeah. So this is kind of an interesting concept, and it's funny. I think even the first time you and I talked, and we were talking with Curtis, we were kind of on a call, and I brought up stepping away, and it always kind of gets this like funny look. But what's interesting is, so I've had the pleasure of conducting, several thousand interviews with dentists throughout my career. And one of the things we talk about is, what are their most important goals? And as I look back, last year, I think was a year probably, none of us will ever forget, and a lot of opportunities to reflect on, things that have gone well, areas we can improve. And so I did the same in my business. So I went back and looked at a lot of those interviews. What was interesting is that in almost every single case, this idea that the number one goal, and if it wasn't number one, it was number two, but in almost every case, it was number one, was some version of I want to be free from the chair. I want to have more time freedom, or I don't want to be chained to the chair. And so this idea of stepping away was a kind of a constant. And to this day, I mean, I had 3 interviews with doctors this week, and it was like every one of their number one goals was step away from the chair, some version of that. And it resonates. And what's interesting is, stepping away from the chair means something different to everybody. For some, it might mean, I want to get to a place like maybe, a lot of doctors have, suffer physically, back pain, neck pain. So maybe they're like, look, I realize I have to continue to work to a certain age, but if I continue to, be, physically kind of chair side doing the dentistry, I'm going to be in a lot of pain, or I might already be in a lot of pain, right? We've worked with clients who have arthritis, tall clients who have neck and back pain, right? And so what I always talk to doctors about is, you will step away from the chair. It'll either be on your terms, or in the case of my grandfather, it was not in his terms, right? And so he was forced to step away from the chair, I think long before he would have liked to, because of some, he had a heart attack, and that forced him to step away from the chair. And so what I would tell doctors is, you need to get clear on, what does that look like? What does stepping away to you look like? Does it mean cutting back from 4 days to 2 days? Does it mean not doing anything clinical, but being a mentor? But you want to get clear on that now, whether you're, second, third, fourth year, dental student, or you think you might be a year or two away from stopping practice. I would strongly encourage you to take some time, put it in your calendar where no one can bug you, shut your phone off, go somewhere quiet where you can think, and really spend some time thinking about, what does that look like? What does stepping away, what is that going to look like for you? Right? Some clients, it means adding additional practices, and again, being more of that mentor. I'm reminded of a client of ours who I was just talking to a couple of days ago, and we did an interview, which I think it's on our website with him. And he talks about when he was right when he graduated dental school, he was like, I know I don't want to work chairside forever. And so from the very beginning, he designed and built his practice in a way to where he brought on staff and hired associates and would spend a lot of time training them and creating systems and processes to where the practice wasn't dependent on him, because he knew, he's like, if I go skiing and I break my arm, or I break my leg, or I get into a car accident or a cycling accident, I have a lot of loans. I've got, responsibilities. I don't want to have that responsibility be on me and then not be able to work and not be able to support my family and not be able to pay, my liabilities. And I think that's a big concern for a lot of doctors. And so from the beginning, he set up his practice that way. And today he's 39 years old. he actually does not practice clinically at all because he doesn't want to. And he spends that time, he has 5 associates in his practice. He has 1 practice, and he spends all of his time mentoring and training and building up his staff and building up his team. And hit 4 of his 5 associates actually commute an hour each way just to work with them. That's how excited they are to work with them, which is kind of a cool concept. And so when you look at someone like that who knew what they wanted at an early on, and then built that out and had a plan in place to do that, it's really impressive. And they take months of vacation and, travel and because he designed it that way though. And so I think the takeaway here for stepping away, Katie, is have clarity around what that looks like for you. And then you can start to kind of put in place, kind of work backwards, like, okay, what needs to happen in my practice? What needs to happen in my personal life so that I can get there, so I can achieve that?
Yeah. So I love that example of that young dentist. But what would you say to those dentists who they like being in the chair, but they know that they can't be in the chair forever? I just picture my dad, and my brother. I mean, they're both fantastic dentists, and they love doing dentistry. What advice or what options do they have? What have you seen? I know that's not kind of what we talked about before, but it just jogged my memory, because I'm sure there are people out there who are like, well, I love doing dentistry, but just like you said, sometimes you have to have a plan of because if you're not my dad used to say, if my hands aren't in somebody's mouth, I'm not making any money. And
right.
And that can't always be the case, as we've saw in the pandemic.
Yeah. Look, my grandfather was the same way. My grandfather loved dentistry. He loved it. And in his case, he stepped away from the chair again, not by choice. He had a minor heart attack, and that led to other physical conditions that just he couldn't practice anymore. And so if you love dentistry and you love the clinical side, that's great. Stepping away might look different. It might be the fact that, like, we have doctors that when we do the interview, they'll say, hey, Jonathan, I want to take 4 weeks of vacation next year. I've only ever taken a week or 2 weeks of vacation, right? I was speaking to a dental society the other day, and I was telling a story of a client of ours. He was selling he had just sold his practice, and he and his wife went on a 7-week cruise to Australia and New Zealand. And when he got back, we were talking, and he got really emotional. He goes, Jonathan, he goes, the longest I had ever taken a vacation in my 30 some odd years practicing was 4 days. He goes, this vacation was the longest time we had gone on vacation with my wife since I was 18 years old. I had not taken a vacation longer than 2 weeks. And I just remember hearing that and like, man, that's sad. Like that. And you could tell he got really emotional and so I think stepping away, again, it doesn't mean stopping practicing dentistry. It doesn't mean even cutting back from dentistry, but it could mean, hey, I took a week of vacation last year. I'd love to take 3 weeks or 4 weeks. We've had clients who will be in this, where we talk about their goals, and they'll say, we'd love to take 6 weeks of vacation. And then they kind of look at their spouse and they're like, yeah, right. Like if that would ever happen. Right. And then sure enough, you build a plan. We say, this is what's going to have to happen. Boom. Next year, they take 6 weeks of vacation. We have our next meeting and we're like, so what do you think? And they're like, man, we never thought that was possible. Let's take 8 weeks of vacation next year. Right. And so it's whatever's important to you. Again, it goes back to kind of those values. Right. And what is it that's most important? Vacation may not be a big driver, but giving back might be, right? So it might be, I've always wanted to take a week or 2 and go on this, dental service, ministry down to some third world country, but I can't afford to take a week or 2 week off, or I can't afford to take it and then to bring my staff down there, right? Because that might. And so again, it's getting clear on what does stepping away look for you. It doesn't have to mean stopping dentistry or stepping away chairside. But I think a lot of the doctors have something they're passionate about. They're passionate about dentistry. And what else are you passionate about, right? Is it mentoring? Is it training? Is it, I'd love to help. A lot of doctors we talk to, they're like, I'd love to be able to help my staff, my team have more financial independence. Great. Then maybe stepping away for you means being able to create more space in your practice where you can work on helping your staff with achieving their goals, right? That could be stepping away. So it really is a really personal I think from what we've learned and from all the conversations we've had, it's very personal and very customized to the individual doctor. And again, going back to kind of those values, what is it that's really most important to you? Why do you love dentistry? Why do you love owning a practice? Why do you love, working with the people you work with? Or spending more time with your family, or, getting involved in a passion project. And then it's okay. So if you had more time and more space, and you didn't have to worry about, like what you said, Katie, because I think a lot of doctors do worry about, they're in a position where they are in a profession where the only time a lot of times they're making money is when their hands are in the mouth, right? So what if we could remove that or change that a little bit to where you had more of that freedom to, you're like, okay, I'm not worried about that. I'm fine. I have enough money. We're good. I can afford to now take some time off and focus on these other areas.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Yes,
Totally.
sense? Yeah. And it hits a home to me a lot, just because I had not said this on the podcast before, maybe, but my dad passed away at 65 before he was able to retire. And so I saw that. I mean, he took 2 weeks off a year, one over the 4th of July and one over Christmas, because he felt like that was fair to his staff. But he had dreams of going to Europe and Scotland, and it never happened for him. And so I see that, and I think, yeah, you work so hard. Dentistry is so difficult and so hard, and you work so hard all year long, that if your goal is just have a better work-life balance, then yeah, definitely. I agree with you wholeheartedly to take the time out, because you don't get that time back. So okay, so we ask this question of every guest, and I think it definitely goes hand in hand with what you're trying to achieve here and stepping away, because it looks so different to everybody. But growth is so personal, and like we've talked about. So what does growth in dentistry look like to Jonathan Moffat?
Man, that's like a big question. Where do we go with that? Because I saw you sent me that question beforehand, and I was like, all right, are we talking like as an industry? Are we talking about
whatever you think?
Whatever I think. What does growth in dentistry look like to me? Look, I think dentistry is it's an industry. It's a profession that I'm very passionate about, and for a lot of the same personal reasons that you are. You're passionate about helping. I think dentistry has a very bright future. There's a lot of, and I'm in this space and been in the space of multi-practice, DSO, corporate dentistry, right? And I think a lot of times that can be scary. I think, you hear a lot of things like, well, we see it, we're experiencing, insurance companies, lower reimbursement rates. Today, think of all the challenges today, hiring and keeping staff.
Mm-hmm.
I would literally say probably every single day I get an email or text message from a client that's like, so-and-so gave their notice, or such and such called in sick, or we would be more profitable. We'd be more, we'd have more production if we were able to fill an XYZ position, right? And so there's a lot of challenges in dentistry, and that'll never change. There's challenges in every industry, by the way. But I think for me, I think dentistry has a very, very bright future. And I think as long as you, like I said, I was just giving a talk 2 days ago to an association of about 60 doctors there. And it talked about something called the scalability equation, and it's plan plus process plus people. And I think if you look at your practice or your group, and you look at it as a business, and you have a plan, and then you take the time to create systems and processes, and you take the time to invest in your people and build a team around you that supports you, supports your goals, supports your practice, your vision, where you're going. I had someone once say, as a president and owner of a really successful group practice, and he once said, he goes, it doesn't matter what the market or the economy or what's going on. He said, there will always be a market, and there will always be buyers for a well-run business. And I believe that 100%. So for those of you, and I think anyone who has and subscribes to Dental Intel, I think they've taken the first big step of saying, look, I'm serious about understanding my business. I'm serious about understanding the metrics, setting goals, having a software that helps me hold myself and my team accountable to those goals, which are all things you need in order to have a high probability of achieving those goals. And so you have a plan, you have a process and you have people, and you have a well-run business that will always be desirable. And and in my opinion, I think you'll always be successful and you'll always flourish. Does that mean you're going to have challenges? Of course you're going to have challenges. But if you review those things and you look at your plan and your process and your people, and you make that investment regularly on a regular basis, and weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, you're doing that. My personal belief and what I've seen is that you'll be successful, and I think you have a very bright future. And I think dentistry, like I said, has a very bright future.
Oh, that is very well said. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I've learned a lot, and it's helped me, rethink about my own goals, resolutions, and tying them to values, and making sure that I have an idea of what I want. So thank you again so much for being here. This has been Growth in Dentistry, a dental intelligence podcast. Again, special thanks to our guest, Jonathan Moffat. Jonathan, where can they find you at?
Yeah. So a couple of things. You can feel free to email me directly. That's just the letter J, my last name, Moffat, Moffat, at alignedadvisors.com. And, or we are doing, I'll do a shameless plug here, Katie. We are doing a 2-day live event, February 18th and 19th in Southern California. So for those of you who live in cold areas, it'd be a nice excuse to come down and enjoy some sunny weather in the winter. But it's a 2-day event. The event's going to be stepping away. You're going to leave. Our goal is that every doctor leaves with an action blueprint, like an actual action plan that they can then take and implement. And then the other piece is we're going to help oversee the implementation, and that big accountability is a big piece. And so if you interested in getting more information on that, you can text RM. So R like Robert, M like Mary, RM. You can text that to 858-298-2919. And then that'll get you some more information on that 2-day event. We'd love to have you there.
Sounds like a fun time. And also living in Utah in February, California sounds really nice. So
it's about that time where those of you with snow are like, all right, we're over it.
Yeah. And also in Utah, we have an inversion, which I cannot just say enough about how much I hate it. So I might meet you there, guys. So, okay. You can find that link to that event, and to reach Jonathan at his email in our show notes, as well as find those links at our website as well by visiting our webpage at dentalintel.com. Also, special thanks to our marketing department here for all of their work on this podcast. I'm Katie Poulsen. Keep growing.